One more thing that we want to be sure we understand and know how to do is an amortization table for a loan. An amortization table basically takes every time you make a payment and says how much of that is going to interest, how much of that is going to principal. And by the time you hit payment 15, how much will be going to principal, how much will be going interest, and we're borrowing it for 4 years, 12 months a year. What will we be paying by the time we finish the loan? And obviously the way a loan works is at the beginning you're paying a whole bunch of interest and a little bit of principal. Your interest payment should go down every month because you are paying off some of the loan. Thus, you're making the same payment and your principal payment goes up every month. By the end of the loan, your last few periods, you're paying hardly any interest. So let's figure out what our monthly payment is first of all. Well, that is going to be our payment function, isn't it? Equals PMT. The first thing we want is the rate per period. So that is our annual interest rate divided by the number of periods per year. The next thing we want is the total number of periods. That's the number of periods per year times how many years we are borrowing. The next thing we want is the present value. Our present value is $1.5 million. Our future value is going to be 0, and our type is going to be 0, which is optional, meaning at the end of the period. So our monthly payment is almost $35,000 a month. Before we make our first payment, our remaining principal is the whole loan, isn't it? So it's this amount. The interest payment per period, our rate is going to be the annual rate divided by the number of periods in a year. The period number is right here in column A. The number of periods is always going to be 48. That's the length of our loan. 4 times 12. Our present value for the entire loan is this much. And our future value for the entire loan is this much. And we're making our payments at the end of the period. So this says our interest is about $6,500, a little more than that for period 1. If we copy that down, it says for period 2 you ought to owe less interest for period 2. I'll bet the principal payment function has the exact same parameters as the interest payment. Let's see if that's the case. If I copy this formula and put it over here, I get the same answer because these were all absolute references and I was referencing period 1. But if I change the I payment to principal payment, this returns the payment on the principal for a given installment. That says here's how much went to principal. And these two things added together should be our total payment, because when you make a payment, every penny has to either go to interest or to principal. And sure enough, if I total these two things, I get the amount of the payment. Let's get that out of there so it doesn't confuse us. And now, our principal remaining right here. Let's think about this for a moment. The second month, how much do we owe? We're not borrowing $1.5 million anymore because we paid off almost $30,000. So we are borrowing our previous balance, this thing, plus the principal payment we made, which is negative, so our balance should go down. Now notice that has nothing to do with the interest payment for this period. It's not looking at that at all. It's just looking at the overall thing. But this is for our own benefit, so we don't have to make calculations. And now if I copy this down, this should be the principal payment for the next month. Less interest means more principal. And if I copy this down, it's going to say take your previous amount and add in your previous principal, and that lowers your principal balance. So let's copy these down, get a full row that we can select, and now we double click and it completes our amortization table all the way down to payment 48, in which we're only paying $150 interest. Almost all our payment is going to principal, and that takes us down to 0. We don't owe any more money on this loan.